At the end of this last week, on April 9th, President Trump issued a presidential memorandum entitled Addressing Risks from Chris Krebs and Government Censorship. Now, Chris Krebs is the former head of CISA, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency within the United States government. And this particular memorandum is causing an absolute freakout session from the EFF and large numbers of cybersecurity experts and extreme leftist programmers, and they're just having a complete and utter meltdown over this. I wanted to go through exactly what's happening here because this is becoming a critical thing within the programming world, within the world of cybersecurity and the like. This is sort of becoming a lightning rod moment. So I'm going to read a little bit from this addressing risks of Chris Krebs and government censorship memorandum, so you know exactly what's in it, because I'm noticing a lot of the coverage of this particular statement from the president is not getting the details correct about what the statement actually is. So I wanted you to hear at least part of it now. All right, so this is the memorandum for the heads of executive departments and agencies from the president. Quote, the federal government has a constitutional duty and a moral responsibility to respect and promote the free speech rights of Americans. Yet in recent years, elitist leaders in government have unlawfully censored speech and weaponized their undeserved influence to silence perceived political opponents and advance their preferred, often erroneous narrative about significant matters of public debate. These disgraceful actions have taken the form of coercive threats against the private sector, including major social media platforms, to suppress conservative or dissenting voices and distort public opinion. Much of this censorship took place during a presidential election with the apparent purpose of undermining the free exchange of ideas and debate. Okay, that sort of sets the stage. It's the opening salvo of this memorandum. Now let's get into the meat and potatoes of this Christopher Krebs guy. Okay, quote, Christopher Krebs, the former head of the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, CISA, is a significant bad faith actor who weaponized and abused his government authority. Krebs's misconduct involved the censorship of disfavored speech implicating the 2020 election and COVID-19 pandemic. CISA, under Krebs's leadership, suppressed conservative viewpoints under the guise of combating supposed disinformation and recruited and coerced major social media platforms to further its partisan mission. CISA covertly worked to blind the American public to the controversy surrounding Hunter Biden's laptop. Krebs, through CISA, promoted the censorship of election information, including known risks associated with certain voting practices. Similarly, Krebs, through CISA, falsely and baselessly denied that the 2020 election was rigged and stolen, including by inappropriately and categorically dismissing the widespread election malfeasance and serious vulnerabilities with voting machines. Krebs skewed the bona fide debate about COVID-19 by attempting to discredit widely shared views that ran contrary to CISA's favored perspective. Now, regardless of what you or I think about any of those issues, about Hunter Biden laptop, about election rigging with voting machines, about COVID-19, it does seem like there's an awful lot of evidence that, yeah, the CISA was actually involved in suppressing the speech and ideas presented by American citizens. So the core of this really is the suppression of speech and ideas, regardless of whether you agree with them or not. I continue. Abusive conduct of this sort both violates the First Amendment, and erodes trust in government, thus undermining the strength of our democracy itself. Those who engage in or support such conduct must not, and this is the critical bit here, must not have continued access to our nation's secrets. Accordingly, I hereby direct the heads of executive department and agencies to immediately take steps consistent with existing law to revoke any active security clearance held by Christopher Krebs. I further direct the Attorney General and the state and the Secretary of Homeland Security, in consultation with any other agency head, to take all appropriate action to review Krebs's activities as a government employee, including his leadership of CISA. This review should identify any instances where Krebs's conduct appears to have been contrary to suitability standards for federal employees, involved the unauthorized dissemination of classified information, or contrary to the purposes and policies identified in Executive Order 14149 of the 20th of January 2025. So he's asking them to go and review all that and report back. So what is that executive order? So Executive Order 14149 is entitled Restoring Freedom of Speech and Ending Federal Censorship, which says, quote, "The First Amendment of the United States Constitution, an amendment essential to the success of our republic, enshrines the right of the American people to speak freely in the public square without government interference. Over the last 4 years, the previous administration trampled free speech rights by censoring American speech on online platforms, often by exerting substantial coercive pressures on third parties, such as social media companies, to moderate, deplatform, or otherwise suppress speech that the federal government did not approve of. Government censorship of speech is intolerable in a free society. It is the policy of the United States to secure the right of the American people to engage in constitutionally protected speech." End quote. Now, this happened. This is undeniable that was happening. I mean, shoot, the Lunduke Journal reported on this repeatedly. Facebook actually developed a custom web portal, right? A custom web application specifically for the Biden administration to censor Americans, right? So they developed a specific portal that the people in the West Wing under the Biden administration and other federal departments had direct access to, so they could go in and say, this person on Facebook, this average American citizen, they're saying naughty things about Biden. They're saying naughty things about COVID, and they're just wrong. So suppress them, make it so that they're invisible, delete their accounts, delete their things, put up little posts about how the experts say this person is stupid and awful and evil, right? This is what was happening. The government was putting pressure on private companies, on public companies too, on agencies to suppress the speech of Americans, right? It was undeniable that it's happening. I mean, Facebook built it, and I even went through the slide deck that Facebook developed to train Biden administration officials on how to easily and quickly and in bulk censor Americans, right? So this is all happening. So the main thrust of this argument is that Chris Krebs, as the head of the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, was doing something very, very similar. He was using his role and weaponizing that organization to censor and silence specific Americans and ideas that were being presented. So that's the investigation that's ongoing. This all seems reasonable to me. It doesn't really matter what your ideas are. If the government says you're not allowed to have ideas, and as a government, we're going to censor your existence of ideas. If you say, you know what, I'm not so sure about, one particular vaccine or one particular medication. I don't know if we should take aspirin for this particular, malady. And the government says, okay, X and Twitter and Facebook and Instagram, censor that person. That person needs to go into social media jail. That's a problem, right? You can't have the government doing that, regardless of what your ideas are. I wouldn't want someone who is saying, I don't like Trump, or I don't like some of these Republicans and their policies. Well, I don't want them to be silenced by the U.S. government either for simply expressing a viewpoint or wanting to have a public debate. And that's really what was happening here. Now, what's fascinating about this memorandum that deals with Christopher Krebs, which basically says for the time being, Christopher Krebs no longer has security clearance, and neither do the people he works with. So the people that report to him don't have security clearance either, because if you take away my security clearance, but I have a whole bunch of employees who report to me and I can tell them to do whatever I want and they all have security clearance, well, I now have effectively security clearance because now I can get any information I want because my employees will do my bidding, right? So you have to take away the people in his organization's security clearance in order to make sure things are secure. It's very straightforward. But that's not how the programmers, the cybersecurity organizations, and the Electronic Frontier Foundation see it. The EFF just put out a statement here 2 days ago stating, cybersecurity community must not remain silent on executive order attacking former CISA director. They say President Trump has targeted the former director of the Government of Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, Chris Krebs, with an executive order, blah, 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 blah. And then they talk about how Chris Krebs released a statement calling that election, which Trump lost, the most secure in American history. And you notice throughout this statement that the EFF takes very decided points of using language which would attack and belittle the Trump administration while trying to bolster their case against the Trump administration. So it's kind of interesting how they phrase this. It's clearly very political. It's very politically motivated, not just, oh, this one particular policy we're disagreeing on, but they clearly want to attack anything related to Trump here. I'm going to continue reading the EFF statement here. It is critical that the cybersecurity community now join together to denounce this chilling attack on free speech and rally behind Krebs and Sentinel-1. Sentinel-1 is the company that Chris Krebs is a chief information officer for, rather than cowering because they fear they will be next. The White House must not be given free rein to turn cybersecurity professionals into political scapegoats. The EFF regularly defends the InfoSec, the information security community, protecting researchers through education, legal defense, amicus briefs, and involvement in the community with the goal of promoting innovation and safeguarding their rights. And we call on its ranks to join us in defending Chris Krebs and Sentinel-1. An independent InfoSec community is fundamental to protecting our democracy and the profession itself. And I just want to point out that this particular memorandum that the president sent out was not going after blanket cybersecurity individuals. It was not going after people working in cybersecurity in the private sector. It was going after specifically targeting a government appointed, non-elected person working in the federal government as the head of the cybersecurity agency, specifically for censorship and essentially violating the First Amendment rights of many American citizens. So the EFF is misrepresenting what's happening here. And I think knowingly, they're not dumb. I mean, they're knowingly misrepresenting what's happening here. But I should also point out that this is the same EFF that last summer made a public declaration that it is okay to call for the genocide of all Jews, but it is not okay to be a Republican that protests things, right? They made it very clear that if you are a Republican and you organize a protest, that is a crime. But if you organize a protest to specifically declare that all Jews must be annihilated, to be completely murdered, that is a-okay, right? Those are very extreme political opinions. Now, you may say, oh my gosh, Lunduke, there's no way that's the case. Well, that is. Those are what they've been calling for, right? And this is really straightforward. You can check it all out on the EFF's website. They also have been filing lawsuits to stop any sort of audit of the federal government agencies looking for fraud or abuse of spending. Basically, anything that Doge is doing, the EFF is suing to stop Doge and the Office of Personnel Management for, as they put it, quote, the brazen and illegal data sharing of federal employees' data with government efficiency group. Basically, they're saying that groups within the federal government that they don't like should not get information about groups within the federal government that they do like. That's the EFF's official legal stance on this. It's very, very bizarre. And they've been suing to try and stop Doge from doing any sort of work that Doge does. Also, this is the same EFF that repeatedly, almost on a monthly basis, puts out lawsuits or statements about how it's really important for little kids to see pornography. It's very, very weird. They do this repeatedly over and over again. They phrase it differently every time, but anytime any effort is put in place to say, you know what, maybe kids should verify they're not a 7-year-old before they, I don't know, go online and, you know, see something or buy something that is age restricted, like porn and whatnot. The EFF comes down on that hard, says, no, you can't do that. If you stop kids from being involved in porn on the internet, that's horrible. That'll be a free speech violation. It's wild. What the EFF does and says is just insane. By the way, if the EFF wants to disagree with my assessment on any of this, they are free to come on my show, or I would even be willing to go on one of theirs. They have a few podcasts that nobody listens to. I would be willing to do that as well, and we could hash this out. But you've got a pretty long track record of doing some really weird stuff. In fact, here is one of the director of cybersecurity for the Electronic Frontier Foundation making a statement. Quote, InfoSec must not remain silent while Trump goes after Chris Krebs, right? Linking to this declaration. And it should also be noted that particular director of the EFF is the same person that had been sharing over the last several weeks how-to guides on how to vandalize and destroy and firebomb Teslas without getting caught. You can't make this stuff up. I mean, the extremism here is off the charts. I mean, clearly we're not talking about people who are taking an ethical, principled stand on one particular issue related to cybersecurity. It's President Trump does anything, they attack anyone related to President Trump in violent ways, and they grossly misrepresent the facts here. This is why I wanted to read some of the actual memorandum here and go over the details, because it's undoubtedly this will get covered in the week ahead. It's one of those news stories that's going to come up. The Chris Krebs and CISA story you're going to see on, you know, cable news networks and on some of the larger online publications. They're going to be talking about this, and people should know what the real facts are of what's actually being disputed, what's actually being talked about, what's actually being done. Chris Krebs, his rights aren't being violated. He's being looked into, right? Because he violated the free speech of other people when he was the head of the CISA, and now because he violated the free speech of specifically conservatives, Trump voters, and Republicans, he's now becoming a hero to the extreme leftists within the computer science world, within the IT world, cybersecurity, and programming, and they're rallying behind him as a hero now. They probably didn't know who he was not that long ago, but now he's a hero to them. We're seeing this a lot. A whole heck of a lot. Here's one prominent InfoSec guy. I am so beeping pissed about this Chris Krebs situation. I can barely put two salient words together. I stand with the EFF. He's got a blog post incoming with his plans, and we can talk about it more publicly. And then Actually, interestingly, a guy named Jeff Atwood chimed in because he was freaked out about this too. How can I help with this Chris Krebs situation? And to which the original author replied back, just watch your back. You aren't as high profile as Chris Krebs, but you are close. Use Signal, use Tor. I'll be in touch. Now, who's Jeff Atwood? Well, he's the co-founder of Stack Overflow. He's the guy who created Discourse. He's that guy. So he's a pretty prominent developer. He's the co-founder of Stack Overflow. Every dev knows about Stack Overflow, and now he's freaked out about this Chris Krebs thing too, because he's convinced that Donald Trump is going to come after Jeff Atwood and everyone who deals with programming or cybersecurity, because we live in a dystopian state and they're coming for us all. It's crazy, right? It's lunacy. It's people hyperventilating and having a complete nervous breakdown and clearly not reading exactly what's happening here. Did Chris Krebs do some silencing of American citizens? It looks like it. It looks like he did. Is there a constant running pattern over the last 4 years or the previous 4-year administration of intense censorship by the White House and other federal agencies of American citizens? Yes, that's undeniable at this point. That absolutely happened. It's extraordinarily well documented. And once again, I'm just going to point this out. The Lunduke Journal even pulled together and did a whole show showing you exactly screenshots of the training materials they used on how to train government officials to silence and censor Americans and take away their free speech right. They have a whole PowerPoint slide deck about it. We published that here. It's very, very straightforward. Thanks to America First Legal, by the way, for digging up all of that and getting that published, because that was critical. That was critical information that we have out there now. So here we are. It's the middle of April of 2025, and this sort of thing is just ramping up, right? So the EFF, the same organization who's trying to train people on how to vandalize people's vehicles without getting caught, is now and is trying to stop the federal government from doing any sort of investigation into waste or mismanagement of funds, is trying to make sure that kids can look at porn. It's just actually doing some weird stuff. They're now on the case for defending anyone who censors American speech, as long as those Americans are Republican. I'm amazed that I haven't heard Mozilla chime in on this one yet. They love censoring Americans over at Mozilla, especially Republicans. They love censoring Republicans. Got to do more than deplatforming, after all. I'm surprised they haven't chimed in. Give them a couple weeks. They'll chime in on this one too somehow. Hi, caramba. I'll keep following this story, but at least now you can go into it when you see everyone else talking about this story, knowing what the executive memorandum from Trump actually is, what Christopher Krebs is actually accused of, without a bunch of hyperbole thrown into the mix and people all freaking out. And you can know that people are having a bit of a panic attack, but everyone who's fueling this panic attack about Chris Krebs being targeted, they're the same people who have been out there encouraging the firebombing of Teslas. By and large, it's the same basic group of people. So take it all with a grain of salt. Thank you to the Lunduke Journal subscribers over at lunduke.com. You can find all the links. They're great links. They're the best links. Everyone says they're the best links. Locals and Rumble and X and YouTube. See Facebook and Patreon and a podcast RSS and Fountain and iTunes and Substack and Spotify. All sorts of different places. There's so many different ways to watch, to listen, to read, to follow everything that I'm doing. I highly recommend it. If you follow me only a couple of places, I recommend Locals. I recommend X. Honestly, X has been proving to be a great platform for publishing this sort of stuff lately. A lot of times as stuff comes in, if I'm not even sure if it's going to make it into an official show or article or anything of that like, I'll throw it up on X. Be like, hey everyone, I just got these leaks. Take a look at this. The folks at X almost got it first because it almost acted like a like a notepad for me. As I'm getting these leaks and verifying them and annotating them, I'm like, hey, take a look at this, all my ex-followers. I've got all this. This is crazy. Before I manage to pull everything together into a full coherent show. It's just a great place for me to put that up. And of course, anyone who has a subscription, a paid subscription to Lunduke Journal, you make this possible. Notice that I didn't start out the show saying this episode brought to you by Square Funkin' Doodle, right? Like it's, and by the way, I didn't swear there. I said funk and doodle. I know I said that really fast and it made it sound a little bit sketchy, but no swearing around here. We keep things PG. But anyone who subscribes also gets access to the forum. If you go to the Lunduke Journal, you can find a link to the forum, which is a great place for all the subscribers to hang out. And it's just for subscribers. If you go there and you're not a subscriber, you won't see much of anything. You'll see like a handful of posts and it'll be like, what? There's nothing here. But then once you're a subscriber, you get a special custom link that or code that lets you get in. And yeah, there's a ton there. There's a nice little happening community. Lots of really nerdy conversations, sometimes political, oftentimes very not political. It's just absolutely fantastic. Thank you to all of the subscribers for making it possible, for making it so I don't have to be sponsored by Square Funk and Doodle. I couldn't do this without you. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, nerds and nerdettes, both of you, across the inner tubes, I do declare, end broadcast.